Hello, Josie Wales here again with another Combat Mission Final Blitzkrieg after action report. This was a quick battle meeting engagement played against Big Joe at the Few Good Men forums. This is the first time that I've played him. I am playing as the Germans and Big Joe is playing as the American forces. The mission is to capture the 4 objectives. My forces are starting in the bottom left hand corner, which is the northwest corner of the map, and my opponent is starting somewhere at the southern end of the map, which is on the right as we look at it. 2 of the objectives named Jill and Kate are major objectives, and the other 2 objectives named Sue and June are minor objectives. This being a quick battle, both of us were free to choose our own forces. The only rules were that we were not allowed any fully tracked vehicles. So half tracks were fine, wheeled vehicles were fine, but no tanks are allowed. Other than that, we were not allowed any pre-planned artillery strikes as it's a meeting engagement, and no artillery strikes were to be made into the setup zones at any time during the game. As you can see, it's a winter map. The terrain is mostly farmland and woodland. There are a few hills which overlook the area and a few buildings and farmsteads dotted around. Objective Jill is fairly near my own start position and gives me the best observation on this side of the map, allowing me to see the hill at my opponent's end of the map and the woods to the east. My opponent has excellent observation from the hill at his end of the map, allowing him to see into Objective Jill and Sue, both of which are nearer my end of the map. Hard cover is pretty sparse on my end of the map, however concealment is pretty good, with woodland covering the east and west flanks and the northern end of the map. The terrain is also undulating, and there are several areas where there is good defilade from observation. The southern end of Objective Sue, for example, cannot be seen from the hill at my opponent's end of the map. All of the buildings on the map are also towards his end, providing him with a definite advantage in hard cover. There are several obstacles to movement on the map. A wide river in the southwest corner prevents vehicle and infantry movement across it, other than a narrow rail viaduct which crosses towards the southern end. Feeding into this river are a couple of tributaries which converge near Objective Kate. The ground near these streams seems fairly boggy and may cause problems for vehicles trying to cross them. There are 2 stone bridges which cross these tributary streams, one on Objective Jill and one on Objective June. If vehicle movement across the streams proves to be too difficult, these could become choke points. I have identified one piece of key terrain on this map, and that is the hill at my opponent's end of the map, designated KT1. It allows good observation and also provides my opponent with good cover because of the buildings up here. To complete the objectives, I have deployed elements of a Panzergrenadier Battallion plus support assets. The core of the force is made up of a company of Panzergrenadiers, 13th Company, consisting of half a dozen half-tracks, 3 rifle platoons and a weapons platoon made up of 2 heavy machine gun sections. The heavy firepower is provided by a cannon platoon from the battalion's 16th Company consisting of 5 Stummels. Attached is a flak platoon with 2 half-track mounted 37mm flak cannons. And lastly, also attached is a forward observer with 2 off-map 81mm mortars. The plan is to move 1st Platoon mounted in the half-tracks as quickly as possible to secure Objective Sue. Once there, they will dismount and consolidate the position. 3rd Platoon will push further round into the east woods, with the weapons platoon supporting both of these platoons. 2nd Platoon will move on foot through the west woods to a point where they are almost directly west of Objective June. 3rd Platoon will then continue their push through the east woods and onto Objective June. Time and casualties permitting, the two flank elements can then join up for a final push onto Objective Kate. Not knowing the exact start position of my opponent makes it a bit harder to judge his avenues of approach. However, by analysing the terrain, it can be seen that a central route provides the best concealment for an approach onto Objective Kate and then onto Objective June. It can also be suspected that my opponent may approach through the westwards directly onto Objective Jill. From Objective June, he also has two routes with which he could threaten Objective Sue. I also anticipate my opponent moving forces onto Hill KT1 because of it being key terrain, allowing good observation with good cover. However, I don't expect any further advance from my opponent on that flank because any troops moving down that hill will be very exposed to any units that I have got set up on Overwatch on my end of the map. The time is 1100 hours and I have 1 hour to complete the objectives. Units are sent forward to recce across the valley and seize Objective Jill. As 3rd Platoon begins its long march, 1st Platoon race towards Objective Sue in the half tracks, led by a Kubelwagen from the Flak Platoon. As the half tracks try to avoid the boggiest areas over the streams, a jam occurs. Meanwhile, one of the Stummels from 2 section move onto the bridge at Objective Jill, and that provides good observation across to Hill KT1, where an American armoured car armed with a 37mm cannon is quickly spotted and fired upon. After a couple of wild shots, it pulls back. A second armoured car is spotted approaching Objective June in the centre. Near Objective Sue, 1st Platoon dismount the half tracks and approach on foot. The armoured car on Hill KT1 gets into a good hold down position and starts to harass 3 section Stummel, which was still trying to get in position from the earlier jam. Stummel is taken out, but revenge is swift.
Run for it! Get out! Everybody out! Let's get out of here! Pull back!
With the forward observer in a good position, 81mm mortars are called in on Hill KT1. Enemy infantry are spotted on Objective June. Strategic Update 1, 11:10 hours, 10 minutes into battle. With my units more fanned out, it makes sense to reorientate the map so that we are looking towards the south and my opponent's end of the map. We can see that 13th Company are making good use of the terrain to conceal their movements onto their objectives. 1st Platoon have reached objective Sioux and are consolidating that position. 3rd Platoon and Weapons Platoon are moving through the woods at the northern end of the map, and 2nd Platoon is picking its way through the western woods. With 1 Stummel down and the 4 remaining Stummels taking up overwatch positions, the 2 flak guns remain in concealed positions for now. The forward observer has got excellent observation onto hill KT1. The destroyed enemy armoured car was up here, as well as some infantry contacts. Another armoured car and infantry have been spotted moving onto objective June. The plan is still intact, with 1st Platoon moving on to objective Sioux. Having disembarked from the half-tracks can now be retasked. 2nd Platoon are making good progress to get into their position to the west of objective June. 3rd Platoon will now embark on the half-tracks to move onto the far left flank. The Weapons Platoon will be split to support both the 1st and 3rd Platoon. The Stummels from the Cannon Platoon will provide overwatch and also suppress the buildings on hill KT1 and any infantry moving into buildings on objective June. On the right flank, 2nd Platoon continue to pick their way through the west woods. In the centre, 1st Platoon consolidate on objective Sioux, allowing the half-tracks to be freed up. No sooner is the objective secured than 60mm mortar shells start hitting around 1st Platoon. Objective Jill also comes under some 60mm mortar fire. However, the mortars are ineffective and no casualties are sustained. Contact is re-established with the armoured car on objective June.
Enemy vehicles ahead.
And more US infantry are also spotted on objective June. Suppressive fire is placed on the buildings inside the objective. On the far left, one of the half-tracks scouts out the route to the east woods for 3rd Platoon. With the half-tracks retasked, 3rd Platoon embark for their push to the east woods. To minimise the incident impact, the half-tracks taxi 3rd Platoon by fire team. Behind objective Sioux, disaster strikes. Third Platoon's company commander, Hauptmann Brauer, is killed, alongside half of the XO team. The company is now without any leadership. On the right, a team from 2nd Platoon with a marksman and machine gun call into position to get eyes on objective June, where they spot the marauding armoured car. Despite the approach to the eastwards from KT1 being exposed, a squad of US infantry attempt to make the crossing. However, it is covered by one of the flak guns and two of the Stummels. The US infantrymen decide better of it and scramble back behind the crest. They are lucky to have escaped without a scratch. On the left flank, 3rd Platoon continues towards the eastward. A half-track is spotted on objective June. It doesn't stay on the fire step for long and swaps positions with the armoured car. Just behind, a second half-track is spotted at the bridge. And enemy infantry are spotted in the woods east of Objective June. Number 2 flat gun is moved onto the bridge on Objective Jill to try and get eyes into those woods. 60mm mortars continue to land around Objective Sioux. This time, however, they cause 2 casualties. The FO responds with 81mm mortars, which signals the start of amassing firepower onto Objective June. Strategic Update 2, 11:21 hours, 21 minutes into battle. 1st Platoon have secured Objective Sioux and have endured a light 60mm mortar attack which has not caused any casualties. 3rd Platoon continue towards the east woods in the half-tracks. They have sustained 2 casualties from 60mm mortars. 2nd Platoon have pushed up a bit further into the west woods. One of the teams has been able to put some harassing fire onto Objective June. 3 of the Stummels are providing overwatch across the valley and occasionally put an HE round into one of the buildings on Objective June and KT1, as are the 2 flat guns with their 37mm high explosives. The weapons platoon have 1 HMG section suppressing Objective June, whilst the other section moves up with 1st Platoon. Again, the plan is still intact, with 2 of the 3 platoons now in position. 1st Platoon have secured and consolidated Objective Sioux, and 2nd Platoon are in position in the west woods ready to support any assault I make on Objective June. The enemy advance has, as suspected, been down the central covered route. There's also been a fair bit of activity on Hill KT1. I'm assuming that there's a spotter up there, as that's where I'd put one. A US infantry element is moving into the east woods and indicates to me that I will have to diverge from the initial plan fairly soon, as my approach to Objective June will now not go uncontested. On the right there is no sign of enemy activity. However, as a precaution I am moving one of 2 section Stummels through the woods to support 2nd Platoon should they become pressed. Nearby, 60mm mortars zero in on the other 2 section Stummel. Two of the crew are taken out and the driver scrambles to get out of the impact zone. American infantrymen near Objective June are spotted entering the east woods from the south. Another half-track is spotted on Objective June. Though the flat guns have no direct LOS to their intended targets, they are able to suppress the areas with 37mm high explosive. On the left, 3rd Platoon approach the east woods from the north. Arriving at the northern end, they cautiously enter the edge of the woods. But the Americans are already there. However, 3rd Platoon are combat veterans and quickly spot the Americans lying in wait. With 3rd Platoon having encountered American infantry on the edge of the East Woods, I need to rethink my strategy. The original plan was to move through the woods and approach Objective June from the east. However, I must assume at least an enemy platoon is in the woods now, so this will become a series of contacts which will whittle down the platoon's strength and delay progress. Additionally, the longer 3rd Platoon take to move through these woods, the more vulnerable they are to a flank attack from Hill KT-1. Although I think this unlikely because of my Stummels and flat guns covering this side of the hill, nevertheless I consider sticking to the original plan to be too risky, so I'll need to adapt to the situation. The attack on Objective June will now be undertaken by 1st Platoon, who are currently securing Objective Sioux. They will take a semi-concealed route onto the objective. 3rd Platoon will be re-tasked with protecting 1st Platoon's left flank. They will do this by undertaking a series of peel manoeuvres to move their protection in line with the assault as it advances on the objective. Of course, Big Joe has a plan all of his own. To find out if my plan is successful, stay tuned for part 2.